Good morning. It is Tuesday, February the 5th. This is Ron. Welcome to the drill. And thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America today, because I'm the only one that makes the presumption for the status quo. Speaking to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. A little apology for yesterday. I was my first time going live on my podcast, and during one of the breaks, I shut off my mic, forgot it was shut off, and left nothing but dead air for the next 30 minutes. Stupid mistake, but I learned. So you and I have been brainwashed. We're brainwashed into believing we're conservative when in reality we have become reactionary. Decades ago, the Democrats, with the acquiescence of Republicans, set the table, politically speaking, by deliberately redefining political identity. The Democrats decided that one's positions on the issues are what define the political parties. Naturally, the Democrats decided what the issues should be. The news departments reinforced this decision, and the Republicans have paid the price. The Democrats created an action-reaction political dynamic, with Republicans playing the role of reactionary. In reality, voters are either left or right as a matter of fact, not a matter of opinion. The most essential political fact of reality is change. Change is indicated when there is an improvement to the status quo. Unless there is something obviously better than what we have now, we stay the course. That's realistic, conservative. Constant change in the blind search for perfection is idealistic, liberal, socialist. Defining voters by the issues turns everything on its head. Progress and moving forward take precedence over common sense. Change, not because it's better, but for the sake of change. Act first, think later. Trial and error. As a result of issues-based politics, Republicans become reflexively rigid and resist change for the sake of resisting change. We become caught in a trap of constantly reacting to liberals and socialists and unable to promote values. Talk show hosts have fallen into the reactionary trap of promoting opinion instead of values. The right talks and thinks only about political tactics and techniques, while American culture is ignored. This gets things backwards. If we concentrate on shaping our culture, the politics will follow. The political landscape today is the result of years and even decades of cultural influence, mainly by the left. Being conservative starts by asking questions, challenging the left's assumptions, and saying no. What's wrong with the way things are? Why question everything? Who says to question authority? What's wrong with being patriotic? What's wrong with being Christian? Being conservative isn't about standing athwart history and yelling stop. It's about standing athwart history and yelling prove it. Not fearing change, but not worshiping it either. Respecting the status quo, thinking first rather than acting first, and subordinating might to right. That's basically in a nutshell what this podcast is all about and what it is that I'm looking to put across. And so today I'm going to be playing a clip of Liz Wheeler from her show. It's called Turning Point, and she has a little segment, I guess, at the end called Final Point. So I'm going to be playing a little clip of that. I'm also going to be reading from the Ayn Rand lexicon, and then there's a new book that I have discovered by Ben Shapiro called Bullies. I don't know that it's like brand new and fresh out, but it's new to me. And I took a look at this and I decided it's something that I definitely wanted to share with my audience. So right now I did want to go ahead. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and we'll do a little break. And then when I come back, we'll go ahead and go to Liz Wheeler. And thank you very much. Welcome back. So I'm going to play this little clip and then make some comments about Final Point from Liz Wheeler, and her subject is 4 news stories the mainstream media refuse to tell you.
Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. What the mainstream media was too afraid to tell you about the news this week. This week, while the mainstream media obsessed about Roger Stone's Nixon tattoo, here are the things that happened that really matter. A new book about Imran Awan, the Democratic IT aide who hacked the congressional computer system, stole tech equipment, sold cell phones and information to Pakistan, and was convicted on one count of bank fraud after all that, was published this week. The book deals with the crime itself and the cover-up of the crime by the Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi. The book argues that the purpose of the Democratic cover-up of this pretty serious breach of national security was to protect the Democrats' frivolous narrative of Trump-Russia collusion. But did the mainstream media report on the damning proof contained in this book that Nancy Pelosi's horrible cover-up put our national security at risk? Oh no, the mainstream media did not. Instead, they claim they care about Russian hacking, but then when it's hacking by a Pakistani man who works for the Democrats, the mainstream media won't say a word. Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, according to a report by the Daily Caller, belongs to a group whose founder pushes horrible anti-Semitic propaganda, including posting a video calling Jews satanic and questioning whether 6 million Jews actually died in the Holocaust. What's worse, this is not some random person vaguely associated with Tlaib. This man was a key fundraiser for her congressional campaign. But did the mainstream media tell you any of this? Did you see any headlines about this horrible racism and anti-Semitism and bigotry and hatred coming from the left? No, you didn't. Democratic Senator and now presidential candidate Kamala Harris says she wants to eliminate private insurance and the free market from our healthcare system. The thing is, a new Kaiser family poll shows that only 26% of people in both parties support Medicare for All, the plan Harris is endorsing, when they're told that government-run healthcare will lead to longer wait times and higher taxes. Moreover, 87% of new drugs come from the private sector. Only 13% come from government funding. But did the mainstream media report on the consequences and the public opinion of Kamala Harris's extreme political positions? Oh, no, they didn't. The mainstream media acted like Harris's radical leftist agenda was totally normal and had no problems. Democratic Governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, seems to endorse after-birth abortion during a radio show interview about the late-term abortion bill in the Virginia state legislature. Northam said about babies born alive when the mother didn't want the baby alive, quote, "The infant would be delivered, kept comfortable, and resuscitated if that's what the mother and family desired." But did the mainstream media report to you that what Governor Northam described is actually homicide? It's against the law in Virginia. It's murder. It's infanticide. No, the mainstream media did not mention any of those things. Instead, the mainstream media said conservatives pounced on Democrats over abortion. The mainstream media doesn't care to report any of that to you, so we will. And that is my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you liked the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a good night.
Okay, so a couple of things about that broadcast. First of all, she makes the big mistake that all pundits make, and that is that she glorifies the Democrats. She reacts to the Democrats. Everything is started good, where she says, here are four things in the that happened this week that the mainstream media won't share with you. And so you're thinking, okay, she's going to tell us about accomplishments of the President Trump or things that are about conservative values, for instance. But no, instead, she goes right back and starts glorifying, in essence, the Democrats. She is sure she's critical of them, but the point is she plays them up. She gives them added press. The one guy who writes a book, somebody's writing a book about Democrats, and she's going to go ahead and help promote that book. You're helping to promote the political careers of, say, the governor of Virginia by making an issue out of what it is that he said. And so why can't it is, and what she should be doing, and all of the pundits should be doing, is promoting values. And the way you're going to be doing that is by playing up the people like Rush Limbaugh, people that are similar in political outlook, socio-political outlook as to yourself. Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, et al. In terms of a book, Bill O'Reilly's writing books all the time. Has he written a book recently? And if he has, why not promote that instead of promoting this other silly piece of trash? And aren't there politicians that are Republican politicians that are doing things that are interesting and that are helpful and beneficial for the country? Listening to Liz Wheeler, apparently not. Apparently the only politicians we have in the United States of America are Democrats. And this is her final point is always about the Democrats, what the Democrats are doing, what the left is doing, why they're doing it, et cetera, et cetera. And again, quit promoting the Democrats. Promote Republicans. Promote conservatism. And go out and find books and people that are doing things that you can praise, where you can say, this is what it means to be a conservative. You got to remember with a lot of the left is what they're doing is a political stunt anyways. All politicians, right or left, engage in what is called political theater. Classic example of that. The New York state legislature voted to include third trimester abortions, and I think they also said that once the baby is born, you can kill them. The Virginia state legislature was on the verge of doing the same thing before somebody in one of the houses voted it down. Political theater. I mean, stop and think about it for a second. Do you really think that the Supreme Court, with a 5-4 conservative majority, is going to go ahead and approve of something like that? Because you got to know that as soon as it gets passed, somebody's going to be lining up. The ACLJ or somebody of that nature is going to line right up and sue them and take this to court and claim that it's unconstitutional. And then once it gets to the Supreme Court, again, it's a 5-4 conservative majority. How do you think this is going to go? So this is a little piece of political theater where the Democrats get to go to their base and say, hey, we did our part. We went ahead and promoted third trimester abortion on demand. Basically, that's been their thing for a few years now, is on-demand abortion. We promoted on-demand abortion. It was those evil bastards at the Supreme Court, those evil conservative bastards at the Supreme Court, that prevented this from becoming law. Now, another thing that they can do then is go ahead and fundraise on the basis of this. Send out money to their donors or letters to their donors asking for more money, saying, guess what? We got all these evil troglodyte conservatives on the Supreme Court that are preventing us from being able to kill babies. There you go. You get some fundraising. You also get a way of getting out the base for the next election. It's going to be a big election. It's a presidential election, and there's going to be, of course, all the House members are going to be up for re-election, and quite a number of Senate seats are also going to be up. So it's going to be a huge election. Both sides need to get out their voters, and they also need to get out money. They need to get their donors ginned up and donating money to them. And this is a perfect way to do it. Republicans have played political theater games as well. When the Republicans had the majority in both houses, but they didn't have the presidency, they were voting every day to overturn or repeal Obamacare. And then all of a sudden, when Donald Trump becomes president, all of a sudden the Republicans can't find a majority. Isn't that interesting? Again, political theater. And one of the masters of political theater was Newt Gingrich in his Contract with America, where we knew that the Republicans were going to sweep into the majority, but Newt Gingrich knew that if there was no mandate, there was no point in being in the majority. How do you create a mandate? You create a contract. Vote for us, and we'll go ahead and do these 10 things. And much to his credit, they actually went ahead and did it. But the point is, everybody knew that the Republicans were going to be swept into office anyways because of racial gerrymandering. But Newt Gingrich pretends that they were voted into the office on the basis of the Contract with America. And so, again, political theater. And if the Contract with America was the real reason that people voted for Republicans, believe you me, you'd have Contract 2, Contract 3. Every time the Republicans went up for election, they'd have a new contract with America. But again, it was fiction. It was political theater, and one of the greatest pieces of political theater in American history. But Republicans fall again into that trap of going ahead and reacting, being reactionary. That's what I meant in my introduction, when I was saying that we've all become reactionary rather than conservative. The second mistake that Liz Wheeler made is referring to the media as the mainstream media. This is one of the big mistakes that the right makes consistently. They refer to the left as progressive. They refer to the media, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, as mainstream. Really? News to me. Because on one side of their mouth, these same Republican pundits will say, that these people are extreme. Look at how they become mouthpieces for the socialists, that they're really nothing but propaganda ministers for the Democrat Party, and then turn right around and call them mainstream media. Really? What's mainstream about them? I don't see anything that's mainstream. And so what they should be referred to is, and if you want to be more effective, pick somebody out. CNN. CNN's a great target. Is just say, CNN reported this, CNN reported that. Even better is find somebody at CNN that you can put on display. Don Lemon, or perhaps even better yet, that goof in the White House that is supposed to be some kind of a reporter, the one that made a fool out of himself at the border. Play him up and embarrass him, put his name on display, put CNN, and quit referring to them as mainstream. You're then conceding the point that you're on the fringe. And plus, then you're conceding that you're a kook. It's the same problem when the right refers to the left as progressives. If the left are progressives and you oppose their policies, what does that make you by default? Duh, regressive. So that's my little rant for this morning, and when I come back, I'm going to be reading from the Ayn Rand lexicon. Thank you very much. Welcome back, and the concept of the day is evasion. Thinking is man's only basic virtue from which all others proceed, and his basic vice, the source of all his evils, is that nameless act which all of you practice but struggle never to admit, the act of blanking out, the willful suspension of one's consciousness, the refusal to think. Not blindness, but the refusal to see. Not ignorance, but the refusal to know. It is the act of unfocusing your mind and inducing an inner fog to escape the responsibility of judgment, on the instated premise that a thing will not exist if only you refuse to identify it, that A will not be A so long as you do not pronounce the verdict, it is. Non-thinking is an act of annihilation, a wish to negate existence, an attempt to wipe out reality. But existence exists. Reality is not to be wiped out. It will merely wipe out the wiper. By refusing to say it is, you are refusing to say I am. By suspending your judgment, you are negating your person. When a man declares, who am I to know, he is declaring, who am I to live? Dropping below the level of a savage who believes that the magic words he utters have the power to alter reality, they believe that reality can be altered by the power of the words they do not utter. And their magic tool is the blank out, the pretense that nothing can come into existence past the voodoo of their refusal to identify it. It is not any crime you have ever committed that infects your soul with permanent guilt. It is none of your failures, errors, or, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. But the blank out by which you attempt to evade them is not any sort of original sin or unknown prenatal deficiency, but the knowledge, in fact, of your basic default, of suspending your mind, of refusing to think. Fear and guilt are your chronic emotions. They are real, and you do deserve them, but they don't come from the superficial reasons you invent to disguise their cause, not from your selfishness, weakness, or ignorance, but from a real and basic threat to your existence, fear, because you have abandoned your weapon of survival, guilt, because you know you have done it voluntarily. And that was, evasion from the Ayn Rand lexicon. And again, I like to read from the Ayn Rand lexicon to remind myself and others that concepts matter, that concepts are as real as things that are material. And there are those that say that since words are arbitrary, sensible signs with meanings imposed on them by the convention, then they're really somehow meaningless or unimportant or interchangeable with other words. And the left likes to play word games. So when I come back, I'm going to be reading again from this new book. It's called Bullies by Ben Shapiro. Thank you very much. And it's Bullies, How the Left's Culture of Fear and Intimidation Silences Americans. It's by Ben Shapiro, and I'm going to be reading from the introduction here. On March 10th, 2011, President Barack Obama led a White House conference on a crisis plaguing America, the crisis of bullying. In the middle of the greatest economic collapse since the Great Depression, with American soldiers involved in 2 wars overseas, with Iran on the brink of nuclear weapons development, the White House was focused, laser-like, on kids getting thrown into lockers. There had been no measurable uptick in school bullying across America. In fact, by all available statistics, bullying is down across the board, with young Americans demonstrating particular tolerance for those of different backgrounds. All Americans, virtually without exception, hate bullies. But President Obama felt the necessity to call leaders across America together to decry bullying. Quote, bullying isn't a problem that makes headlines every day, unquote, the president said, his sonorous baritone trembling with emotion. Quote, but every day it touches the lives of young people all across this country. And that's why we're here today. If there's one goal of this conference, it's to dispel the myth that bullying is just a harmless rite of passage or an inevitable part of growing up. It's not, unquote. Obama didn't stop there. He appeared on Cartoon Network to preface a documentary on bullying, solemnly intoning, quote, I care about this issue deeply, not just as the president, but as a dad. We've all got more to do. Everyone has to take action against bullying, unquote. He launched a website under the auspices of the Department of Health and Human Services, stopbullying.gov, because God knows that HHS shouldn't be utilizing its resources on, say, fighting cancer. Obama even cut videos on behalf of anti-bullying groups like the It Gets Better campaign. So what prompted President Obama's sudden recognition 2 years after taking office that bullying was an issue worth tackling? Jonathan Capehart, an Obama administration ally at the Washington Post, asked White House senior advisor and Obama mentor Valerie Jarrett exactly that question the day of the White House conference. Taking on bullying, Jarrett admitted, was part of the president's, quote, winning the future, unquote, campaign strategy. In fact, the goal was to recruit all Americans as part of Obama's anti-bullying campaign. Quote, the purpose here is to engage people in that conversation and to give it the spotlight of the White House so that perhaps people who have been ignoring this issue or weren't aware of it, we can capture their attention. Everybody in the community has a role to play, not just parents and students, unquote. What could a childless 80-year-old shut-in from Hoboken, for example, do about bullying? Obama and Jarrett never made that clear. What they did make clear, however, was that bullying, not just school bullying, was something that had to be fought. Americans had to take up the challenge. America had to become an anti-bullying country. This was a weird pitch, to say the least. After all, America has the greatest anti-bullying record of any country in human history. America hates bullies. Over the course of the 20th century, America defeated Nazism and communism abroad, Jim Crow, and sexism at home. Why would Americans of all people on earth, need a remedial course in anti-bullying? We didn't. We just needed a bit of Obama re-education. The strategy here was simple. Obama and his friends in the media and on the organized left picked the one thing all Americans can agree on, bullying. They strategically placed President Obama at the head of the anti-bullying cause. Then came the brilliant gambit. They appropriated bullying to apply only to anything remotely conservative. The Tea Party, A bunch of bullies. Religious people, bullies. Global warming unbelievers, defense hawks, venture capitalist fans of voter identification or traditional marriage, opponents of affirmative action, right to work advocates, supporters of Israel, haters of Glee, bullies. Those who dislike President Obama, they were the biggest bullies of all. Liberalism and anti-bullying, it turned out, were, miracle of miracles, one and the same. Their twisted logic was deceptively easy. Liberals claim that they are all about protecting victim classes from bullies. Conservatives oppose liberals. Therefore, by definition, conservatives must be bullies, and bullies must be stopped. This was the Obama campaign's entire re-election strategy. Everyone is against bullying. Unite Americans behind Obama on bullying, then redefine bullying to include everything that Obama and the left oppose. Voila! A unified coalition against bullying becomes a unified coalition against conservatism. Leftists, by definition, become anti-bullying pugilists standing up for the little guy. Right-wingers, by definition, become bullies who ought to be punched in the mouth. The Obama embrace of the anti-bullying cause and the subsequent linguistic trick of conflating anti-bullying with anti-conservatism is the single best bully tactic in the history of American politics. The liberal anti-bullying campaign justifies every leftist thug tactic they've ever embraced. It's not a new tactic. Victims hold a cherished place in the liberal heart. With victimhood comes moral power, and the power to extort the supposed victimizers. Liberals have always claimed to be fighting bullies. The only difference is that now that the President of the United States openly conflates opposing his agenda with bullying. To that end, President Obama routinely plays the victim. He's told us, even as he plays the race card, that people treat him differently because he has a, quote, funny name, unquote, and because if he had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Martin. He trots out race flacks like 9/11 truther Touré to suggest that white people, the same white people who idiotically voted him into office, have been turned violent by the rise of successful black men. He's got Tom Hanks narrating a campaign video in which he suggests that Obama's failures are due to this naive, beautiful waif of a man facing down the harsh realities of scum-sucking Republicans who oppose glorious change. No wonder Obama looks like he's lost weight. He's been lugging that gigantic cross around for the last 4 years. But, says the Obama campaign, there is a way to end Obama's victimization. Vote for him and destroy anybody who opposes him. See? That's the dirty little secret buried beneath all the left's supposed hatred for bullying is a passionate love for bullying. The use of power to force those who disagree to shut up, back down, or face crushing consequences up to and including loss of reputation, career destruction, and even death. The left's anti-bullying stance is an enormous lie. It is a purposeful lie. It is a lie designed to disguise the fact that leftists are the greatest group of bullies in American history. And that's absolutely correct. He hits the nail right on the head there. The left is all about manipulation, bullying, and intimidation. They may very well try to manipulate people first, but if that doesn't work, they will always feel free to bully and intimidate. And a lot of that comes from the philosophies of the left: subjectivism, determinism, skepticism, and materialism. So, if you want more on that, an excellent book to read, at least the first chapter, is Philosophy, Who Needs It? And the first chapter goes into explaining why it is that philosophy is not only relevant in everybody's life, it's inescapable. So that's an excellent book to read. And then there is the Totem Icon introducing series, introducing philosophy, introducing ethics, etc. And they are heavily illustrated. So it makes it a lot easier to read and understand. You're not going through something that seems like a textbook. It doesn't seem like so much work, but still very, very educational. And so that brings us to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, I thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.